Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who is just begging for a reason to review anything from the back catalog of Mach-Hommy. Fortunately, Mach-Hommy and Tha God Fahim re-released their album Duck Season Chinese Algebra on streaming, and that gave me a chance to listen to this 2018 album for the first time. You see, I try to just do new releases, right? So I'm not going to go, even though I loved Pray for Haiti, it's one of my favorite albums of the year, I'm not going to just go through his whole catalog willy-nilly. So this gave me this excuse. And I went on Reddit and I joined the Mach-Hommy board. The people there are really quite nice. And I just sort of asked around, is there anything actually new to this? And they just say no. Drac921 just says he usually re-releases old things or puts them out on streaming services, and it's sort of like a new way to listen to something which the sort of really deep fans of Mach-Hommy have already heard for a long time. But I'll take the excuse. Now, I do have a bigger framing device. So part of what makes Mach-Hommy, sorry, I got a little thing on my shirt that's just gonna bug me the whole time. I got it now. I'm not gonna edit that out because I don't edit. Part of what makes Mach-Hommy interesting is his relationship that he seems to have or doesn't have with his fans and with fame, and that's one of the themes of this album, which I'll get into. But he doesn't make it easy to listen to his music or to buy his music. So the framing device I'm going to use here is on his website, or one of the 5 different websites that you can buy his music on with different domain names. It's all kind of very weird and strange. This album, Duck Season, Chinese Algebra, is for sale for $222. So am I going to buy it? Okay, now I do have a good job. It's not a great job, I'm not an investment banker, I am a professor. And I do make some money from Patreon, which I use to buy some music. But that's the question. Will I like this album enough to spend the $220 and eventually have it shipped to me? I'll tell you by the end of the video. So I like this though. It's funny. I like that he's so difficult, that it's so hard to listen to his music, that he does not allow his lyrics to exist on the internet. Ouch. He doesn't allow his lyrics to exist on the internet. You can't find them. He takes them down everywhere he finds them. So this kind of mystery, the fact that he constantly wears a mask, that he wears a bandana, a Haitian flag over his face, the fact that he does that means that it creates this sort of distance between you and him. But at the same time, it feels like an honest artistic expression. That it doesn't matter, the fame doesn't matter, doing things the way other people do it doesn't quite matter. You can't hear his lyrics, you can't hear his music, he doesn't care. Can't read his lyrics, he doesn't care. Can't always buy his merch, doesn't really care. I managed to watch one interview with him, or listen to one interview with him, in which he talked about the fact that he's moving at a leisurely pace, that's his goal. And I don't think it's calculated. I think that's maybe part of what makes him so interesting or seductive as a figure, is that, he's not I don't care about my fans. I don't even think he cares enough about being famous to not care about his fans. He's just doing his thing, and if you find a way to appreciate it, then all the better for you. Which puts him in this realm of these other underground rap artists that I've been coming to enjoy a lot lately, like Rap Ferreira or Ka, or these sort of mysterious figures that just make art. And if you can catch up with it, and if you can enjoy it, great. If not, there's other music to find. So what is on this 2018 album? First of all, I don't know what it is about Mach-Hommy's voice, but I find it to be one of the most pleasant voices to listen to in hip-hop. Now, pleasant, right? Hip-hop isn't supposed to be about pleasant, but there's a timbre to his voice which is just an absolute perfect timbre. And then the way that he attacks each verse, I often talk about Ghostface Killah being one of my favorite rappers, and it's not so much what he says, but how he says it, the way he plays with words, the way that words just seem to fall out of his mouth in the right order, in the right combination. And even if it doesn't always serve a meaning, it has a lyrical and a rhythmic flow to it that seems to me, at times, to be the height of English language, right? I know I'm gonna sound like hyperbole, but good poetry, Shakespeare, all that, it does things with the English language that makes you just thankful that you speak this language, that you get to understand what's being said here. And that's the way I feel often listening to Mach-Hommy. One thing that he does is he's not always on this relentless attack, which is part of what makes his flow so interesting. Sometimes he'll be a little bit calmer. Quite often he'll sing. He sings a ton. At times he raps and he seems to be sort of on a conscious tip, you know, thinking very much about like how to be a responsible person. Other times he just raps about having money and being rich and selling drugs, right? He has this sort of great combination where you can never quite pin him down. And I think that's part of what makes him such an interesting and enjoyable rapper. Maybe too good when it comes to his collaborator, okay? When it comes to Tha God Fahim. So as a rapper, Tha God Fahim is he's a nice counterpoint to Mach-Hommy, except much like Poochie on The Simpsons, whenever Mach-Hommy is not rapping, I'm just thinking, where's Hommy? You know, like I never want to hear other people, right? So the thing I'll say about Tha God Fahim, and this is the first time I've listened to him, I know he has a deep discography. Please tell me in the comments other things I should know about Tha God Fahim, because I enjoy what he does. But he is a weird throwback to me in the way that, I don't think he's trying to be a throwback, right? But he has a sort of like youth and sort of like clarity and enthusiasm to his voice that reminds me of sort of the beginning of the new school rappers, you know, or like kind of late old school rappers, you know, like old school rappers like Master Ace or Special Ed or something, where there's like a sort of like fresh-faced enthusiasm and clarity, you know, very far away obviously from mumbling, but also very far away from sort of a sneering, dark, you know, very thick slang, which is not the same thing as mumbling, obviously. So there is something about that with Tha God Fahim which I like, and I think it contrasts quite nicely with Mach-Hommy. Now, as far as the production goes, it's all by Tha God Fahim, and there's where he obviously earns his paycheck because the production on this whole album is just great. Just great low-key beats, very simple loops with kind of grimy sounds. The drums very far back in the mix, as has been happening quite a bit in hip-hop, it turns out, over the past 5 years. I don't know why. One second. I was doing kind of a cute thing back here with my computer, but it just got really dark back there. So I don't know why they call it duck season, okay? You know, is it a Daffy Duck and Scrooge McDuck? I mean, a Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny joke? Is it based on Scrooge McDuck, as someone suggested on Reddit, you know, that he often has the image of Scrooge McDuck jumping into a money pit? That's the cover of another one of his albums. And then right before I started filming, I forget the name of the person who said it. No, obviously it's a reference to the song Duck Season off of Wu-Tang Forever, which has a great verse from Method Man where he talks about duck season, and it does seem to be a reference to this, but it's part of the charm of Mach-Hommy, where you never quite know what he means. Like, I can go on a Reddit forum filled with Mach-Hommy superfans, and they all just basically say, I don't know, it could sort of be this, you know? Like, people who are really dedicated to understanding everything at the highest possible level, and their final conclusion is, probably that? I don't know, could be something else. But let's actually get into the album. And I'm going to do something that I call my stamp. That's the example song. If you want to know the best part of this album, the best example of not only this album, but of the Mach-Hommy style, as far as I can tell from the two projects I've listened to, I'm going to go with the first track, King Georgie. I'll put a link to it up there. Just an amazing song. I'm so happy he re-released this and gave me the excuse to review it. It's a great example of his art. Just like this cool kind of, you know, Tha God Fahim has this great kind of flute loop and kind of like a shaker guitar, like there's drums in the background, but they're very, very low. And it's really just a template for Mach-Hommy's voice, just playing with the sounds of words, saying something maybe, maybe not. And, you know, I tried to write down the lyrics. I tried to find them, you know. Larry Davis with the Avias. So like Avia sneakers, right? I actually brought these sneakers from home. I was all excited because I'm like, awesome, I have Avia sneakers, and I'll show them on screen. But these are actually Asics, so I don't know. Larry Davis is a famous figure in the underground. I don't really know where he's a famous figure, but he's a person who was killed in jail recently. He was arrested for killing a drug dealer, but was in a shootout with the cops and apparently stood his ground. So already just right off the bat, we have this weird just play with words. Larry Davis with the avias, wavier, enough labias, spread majora to minora. So here's the whole thing, like labias being vagina lips and majora to minora. Like, is this just playing with words? Does this have a deeper meaning? Gush glaciers, gravier, much crazier, one savior, cagier. I don't want to talk about Arabia. Like, it doesn't really matter if this does actually mean something specific or if it doesn't. I get the sense that it does. But it's this great joy of listening to this person with this timbre of voice and just trying to parse it out and knowing that you're doing your best to know what the lyrics are, but you're just guessing, fundamentally. Make you pirouette like Spirou. Like, is that like a reference to the Belgian cartoon character, Spirou? Like what? And then simple lines, make you hit the bed like pillow, don't listen to music, but I like to fiddle. And then he does this thing which really makes me wish I had the lyrics, but also makes me happy that I don't. Okay? And that is, he says, mirror, middle, marrow, middle, I don't know what he says. It's something to the effect of the words mirror, middle, and marrow, I believe. But I don't know. And I have no idea. And the way that he delivers it, I listened to it like 20 times in a row yesterday, just like trying to hear mirror, marrow, and it becomes like a kind of poetic refrain, something repeated. He then leads into the next verse using that as an actual middle point in his verse. Middle flipping pictures like Reuters, just like mirror, middle, and it's almost like kind of getting ready to go into the next verse. It's really exciting. And then the way he plays with language can be heard on the next verse as well. Voyage every time I get knocked, I come back worser. Every time my S drops, you come back thirster. Okay? So, like playing around, intentionally misspeaking, and then this leads directly into this beautiful chorus that is all in Creole. And just when he sings in Creole, it just gets me. I just love it. It's probably because I understand some of it because of French. I heard at some point talk about ouvre la gorge, like open up a throat, tout d'abord, like at first. But the very center of it is this term wap con George, which is a Haitian expression. I do teach a class on Haitian history. I'm not an expert, but it's very important to know Haitian history. And wap con George is an expression that is like, you'll see, essentially, or like just wait and see. It refers to a hurricane, Hurricane George, that really hurt Haiti. Haiti has terrible luck with natural disasters and political disasters and colonization disasters and slavery disasters and just being mistreated by the entire world constantly and forgotten and abandoned disasters. So George was this hurricane that devastated Haiti, and so apparently it's something that they say, it's an expression like you'll see. So it's a weird, nice kind of colloquial expression there, ties it into to his Haitian heritage, while at the same time, just after this relentlessly awesome verse, Larry Davis to the avias, to the middles, to the get the worser, and then he just sings and calms you out. And then Juju Gotti comes in, someone I've never even heard of before, has a nice little sung bit here that actually is the best guest appearance on the album, I'd say, because it's sort of the most mellow. Instead of trying to match his rapping, which I don't think you can do, it sort of matches his kind of sing-song tone. So that's the first song. And let me tell you, when it comes to thinking about whether or not I want to spend $200 on a single EP, songs like this make me think I probably should. Next song is called Cardio, no let up. Great jazzy trumpet in the background, kind of guitar as well, mellow brushed drums. Again, Tha God Fahim keeps things very low on the drums. Really lets the lyrics, lets the rap do most of the rhythms. I was able to write down some of the lyrics here, or do my best approximation here, and want to study them a little bit. Angry words will never loan you a penny. Interesting idea. Is their last words from the posers posing as friendly. You want a motive to end me, don't know cobras come near me, last words. And like, so, I mean, it's not that radical of a verse, right? Like talking about people who you can't trust, right? And that's like every Drake song, but just about the way he delivers it. Last words from the posers posing as friendly, just this play with the words, that sound right in the middle. And then he'll throw out a kind of goofy, corny line like, I'm just trying to kick it like Italy, like Italy looks like a boot. And then we get to the chorus, which is a chorus which has haunted me ever since I first heard it a couple days ago. It's hard to see the picture when you're stuck up on the frame. The artery is different from the mother effin' vein. Okay, first of all, it seems like this whole song seems to be about this theme of sort of like, of being a creator, of giving something as opposed to taking something, being a part of something versus being on the outside. So you can't see the picture when you're stuck on the frame. I get the sense this is talking about sort of people who are unable to actually see their position or see the position of other people, I guess in the rap game or just sort of in the culture in general. And then the artery is different from the mother effin' vein. I checked in with my scientist wife, the Dr. and Mrs. It turns out this is true. So, like, arteries bring in oxygenated blood. Like the iron molecules carry oxygen, and it goes like the heart pumps it to the brain and to the lungs, which is what needs the oxygen, and then the deoxygenated, forget it. You know what I'm saying? The blood without oxygen in it goes out the veins. So it's a fascinating concept, an idea of the sort of circulation system and the idea of, I don't know, maybe art as a kind of heartbeat that beats, or like people that give something versus people that take something, or something that carries value versus something that doesn't, And I think he's making a good argument that his art and his music, or their art, their music, with the God Fahim, are, bringing oxygen to the brain, as opposed to just taking that spent blood out. It's great. Actually, I did my thesis on 17th century French literature, and that was right around the time they figured out the circulation system. And this has nothing to do with anything, but it was I think it's an interesting theme for a centralization of the French kingdom around the king, where often there'd be sort of like circulating images of sort of imagining the king as a heart that's able to pump blood out, take blood in, and have it all go through. Kind of interesting image, and it's funny to have that, my other area of scholarship come into this area. Kung Fu, with 2 U's, has a verse here. He's fine. Then Fahim comes in with his very super positive lyrics. Until my fate fulfilled, just got to keep on working. If the mind is not applied, the conditions will worsen. A good example of this very positive vibe. And then this very loud and disruptive yeah comes in. I think that's Mach-Hommy. It sounds almost like a producer tag. I don't know. Next song is Diamond Exchange. Cool kind of blown out sample with all these horns playing like in the background. Fahim has a chorus all about we're just slaves to our ways, but truth open to lies. I'd say, this isn't quite up to the standard of the other 2 songs. And I'd say maybe a similar thing with the next song too. Basically, the more Mach-Hommy-ish it is, the more I end up liking it. The more Fahimish it is, the more I like it, but don't find it as engaging. Blackamoor Brooch has a great soul sample. I can't quite say what they're saying, but Mach has just a great, very bizarre verse. It seems almost psychedelically bizarre verse. And then we have probably the best from Fahim, where he does these rhymes with Ema sounds. Smoke you like good Reefa, Wiz Khalifa, slam you like John Cena, break your FEMA, take cover like a Musalima, like a Muslim, Musalima, Hellbringer, and just all these kinds of rhymes with and ear and and za and all that. It's nice because it sort of gives him a little bit more form, whereas I think maybe at times he comes across as a little bit generic. Here he's kind of doing something a little bit more sing-songy, a little bit more catchy. And then right as I'm sort of on my downswing, as I'm here kind of talking about the God Fahim in a not a great way, we have the song Quintuple Black, which is basically, I don't know if Mach-Hommy is doing anything here, but this is Tha God Fahim at his absolute best. This cool, like detuned drum and low piano beat, just like maybe the best beat on the album. Just great. This crazy like tinkling piano as well on lead, and he's just like leading this whole song, singing about the sunshine and talking about how we're going to be dead a lot longer than we're alive. Great kind of cosmic, personal, inspiring raps from the God Fahim. Hut 1, another great beat with a spiraling like boom bap like boom bap drums and spiraling piano, cool kind of hard synthesizer loop. We had this "What's in the Safe" said over and over again in the back. And I don't know why, but it really reminds me of the song "Black Trump" by Cocoa Brothers. Guess who's the Black Trump? What's in the safe? The usage of like a single line sampled over and over again in the background, it has that kind of good 90s feel. And again, this is one of these questions where we're trying to figure out what is Mach-Hommy's position. This whole song seems to be about getting the money, getting the cheese, getting the cheddar, right? But at the same time, he also talks about how he rejects getting money. Like he asks how is he going to make money if he's always wearing a mask, and talks about how secretly we hate honor, right? That actually the industry doesn't admire honor. This, and it seems like this kind of struggle that he has, where he likes being rich and likes having money, but at the same time, he would never sell out in order to get that money. But by not selling out, by doing things like selling albums for $200 and having people buy them, he's able to do it. Fahim has maybe the funniest line on the album. "I'm a household name because they use my name in the house." Just kind of funny. Next song, Borlet, a sung chorus from Mach-Hommy. This is my main issue of the album. The back half of the album just doesn't have enough Mach-Hommy. Where's Poochie, But he sings a nice chorus that's catchy. You placed the wrong bet. And then has an appearance by a rapper named Denmark Vesey. And if you're a student of African American history, you'll hopefully know Denmark Vesey was a slave, formerly enslaved person who tried to lead a slave uprising, and he was inspired by the Haitian Revolution. He was going to liberate South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. He's going to liberate it and kill all the slave masters. But as often happened, there was a rat in the ranks, and it was canceled, and the guy was killed. But it's an interesting figure in African American history and in American history, because don't forget, African American history is just another word for American history. We really cannot separate them. It is totally useless. Oh great, now you can watch me skip the Adobe Flash Player updater. Now would you just get out of here? I'm not gonna update. Just tell me in the comments if I should have updated, huh? Get out of here. Okay. And then there's a really, I like the verse from Denmark Vesey, and I like these guest rappers, but again, I just want more Mach. And again, with the second to last song, Closer, has a mournful clarinet sample, which is quite nice. More singing from Mach, keep your head on your shoulders. I really like the kind of high register attack from Tha God Fahim, kind of a mournful verse about trying to cope and looking out for greed and dying alone, which, the more I listen to this album, the more I like Tha God Fahim, in particular just his stance, because he just seems like a thoughtful person who is using rap to express his thoughts. It doesn't seem like he has any particular strong position. He's not like, I'm the real hip-hop guy and everyone else is lame. And he's not like, I sold more bricks than a bricklaying brick seller, right? It's none of that stuff. It just seems like he just has thoughts and just gets those thoughts out. And then we close with Winchester Skates. Oh, thank God. Thank God we close with Winchester Skates. If there's anything that was going to get me to separate myself from my $200, it would be opening with King Georgie and then closing with Winchester Skates. God Fahim, again, another great beat. It's a good album. It's a well-produced album when you can't decide which beat is your favorite beat. This might be my favorite beat, a great choral sample. And then he keeps on talking. So it's Mach-Hommy keeps on talking about, watch how I put you on skates. And this is where this one interview that I found bootlegged somewhere on YouTube, I'll include a link in the description, with Tyrone de Harlem, someone who I don't know. He talks in this interview and he explains why he does what he does. And he describes the reason he goes slowly is because he wants to be in control. And then he compared himself, okay, now think, okay? Just take a second here and think, right? If you were trying to be some kind of super badass rapper, and you were trying to describe how you are a master and in control, what metaphor would you use? What simile would you use? He's a baby. He said, babies don't crawl and don't walk until they've mastered how they can stand on their own feet. that like that's his goal, is to have the mastery of a baby, the speed of a baby. And he compared other rappers who, get a deal and start putting out albums and don't quite know what they're doing as being out of control and wibbling and wobbling and falling over all over the place. So, there's obviously a difference between intelligence and wisdom, right? And I'm not going to get into that here. But when it comes to like the wisest hip hop line I've heard, like this is one of the wisest possible positions you can to have the mastery of a baby, as opposed to the lack of mastery of a young man who's like falling all over the place and doesn't know where they are. And so he talks about how he's not that interested in fame, and this is all kind of tied into these greater themes of this album, I think, right? This Chinese algebra, which, if you don't know Chinese algebra, I didn't even talk about that. That one's fairly simple. That's like an expression. If something's difficult, you say it's as difficult as Chinese algebra. Although I imagine algebra is just as difficult in any other language. So when he's talking about like wanting to be this baby, he says that in the interview, but then this whole verse starts off with him talking about rappers wibble wobbling who can't stand on their own feet. And then a great example of his cadence, of how he puts together words. Here's my best approximation of what he raps in that first verse. Keep it, his eagle starvin', we don't bargain. Keep the eagle squawkin', we don't need no pardon. We the sovereign, keep the needle droppin', keep the diesel poppin'. That weird yeah then comes right after this weird sing-songy part that then leads into that mysterious and menacing chorus that opens up the song of Watch Me Put You on Skates. Okay? But this whole eagle squawking, need no pardon, we the sovereign, just that attack, which very few rappers can do this well, of unexpected words with good sounds. I'm not sure. I imagine one of those eagles is a Desert Eagle gun. Maybe they both are. I don't know. I don't quite know how it all goes together, but it just sounds so good. And the second verse opens up with every brick, meaning a brick of cocaine, comes with a free razor, so when the feds come, you can slit your wrists. N-words need prayer. Just a beautiful line, right? So the idea that like every brick has a razor, I don't know if that's true. I've never bought any quantity of cocaine, but I imagine, at least metaphorically, it's an interesting idea that like when you get this, either it works or you're dead or in jail, right? Like the weight of that brick seems to be implied here. And then he talks very clearly about how his ankles bear weight. I think this goes back to this image that he presents of himself as a baby. And then he says James Brown had to buck dance for change, F fame. And I think that's a great way to put it, right? That James Brown, he invented funk music. He invented so many different kinds of music. He mastered music on such an amazing level, and yet he had to dance around for change, right? And that's what he refuses to do. And I think this is a great example of a lot of things we're seeing in hip-hop, where a lot of artists, not exclusively African-American, but a lot of African-American artists are understanding and explicitly explaining the exploitative nature of fame and how it exploits young people, how it exploits artists, whether they be white, black, or other, right? It exploits them and gets them chasing after fame and turns them into roller skating, weeble wobble people who can't do anything interesting. So instead, we have this guy who made this great album in 2018. 2 years later, releases it on streaming. We'll see. He releases it, and will people buy it? So will I buy it? Am I going to spend the $222 to get Chinese algebra? No, I'm not going to. It's not that it's not great, but it doesn't quite have enough Mach-Hommy content for me to purchase it for $200. That said, while I was there on that site looking around, I happened to notice that he had an art print for sale. An art print which is a reproduction of the cover of his album, which I have not yet reviewed, which I will hopefully review soon, Haitian Body Odor, with that image of Michelle Bennett, who would soon be Michelle Duvalier, image of her wedding to Baby Doc. I cannot wait to digest that album. I have gotten probably 30 or 40 comments over different videos that I have to review Haitian Body Odor. So I ordered this print made by Mach-Hommy himself. It was more expensive than the album, but I ordered it and I look forward to getting it. And when I do, then I will jump into Haitian Body Odor and I will analyze that, because I think that will have the Mach-Hommy content that I need, like enough of that Mach-Hommy content. And also it's just a beautiful image, you know? It's like, I actually sold, so I'm a Star Wars collector, I sold some Star Wars items to be able to buy this, because I recognize it as a good collectible, but also as a great piece of art. And like, how can you praise somebody who robbed the Haitian people so much, who mistreated them? Like, how, like what's going to be in this album? Why is this image? Why is she venerated like a Loa or like a saint, right? Final thing I want to do is I've been using this in the background. So if you don't know, Mach-Hommy often wears a Haitian flag around his face, but I haven't showed this to you guys before, I don't think. This is a bust of Toussaint Louverture. You can see on the back here. It was made in 1958. It's out of wood, and my father purchased this on the docks in Port-au-Prince in 1958 when he was traveling there. This is one of my absolute favorite items in the world. I wouldn't sell this for $1 million. Look at how beautiful it is. If you don't know, Toussaint Louverture was the former slave who was one of the primary people behind the Haitian Revolution, one of the primary leaders after the Haitian Revolution took off. Read a book of Haitian history. So that's why I had that. That's basically the biggest honor you can give Mach-Hommy, is that kind of imagery. Okay, well then until next time, please enjoy my other videos. It is funny, Mach-Hommy is from Newark, and last week the Many Saints of Newark came out, so it's an interesting week for rehashed ideas from Newark, New Jersey. I would say this is more successful than that. I may do a review of that movie on my secret second channel, which I've already launched but I've not advertised, so maybe look out for that, but maybe not. Okay, well then until next time, for the entire Duvalier family, there's the camera.